I often say, especially in kind of like the market we operate in, kind of like that mid enterprise space, there's no competition because there's so much damn work to do. There's 100 there's 1,000 RockCybers out there, and the more we learn off of each other, the better, right? We're not stealing each other's customers.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Rock Lambros, who is the CEO and founder of RockCyber, a cybersecurity consulting firm that specializes in providing risk management and security advisory services. With a deep understanding of both the technical and business aspects of cybersecurity, Rock leverages over 2 decades of experience in the industry to help organizations navigate the complexities of modern cyber threats. His leadership at RockCyber is marked by a commitment to integrating advanced technologies, including AI, to enhance cybersecurity measures and streamline threat detection and response, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Rock, welcome to the program.
Devin, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
The pleasure's all mine here. I'm super excited to kind of get into some of the work that you're doing at RockCyber and some of the work you're doing around AI. But before we get too far into it, Rock, if you could maybe just give me a couple of minutes on, who you are, where you came from, and how you ended up as the founder of RockCyber.
Yeah, so kind of my story is a little traditional, a little different. I got into security, ironically and almost cliche like after 2001. I was a database administrator and developer at the time. And I just kind of had this thought like, hey, the next battle space is going to be this newish thing that just whose bubble just crashed in early 2000 called the internet, right? And um, so pivoted into database security, data security, and then network security and governance, and eventually worked my way up to a CISO role for an oil and gas company based here in Denver that ended up getting acquired by Marathon Petroleum. Stuck around for that integration for 2 years. We ran really, really hard during those 2 years, and I was really burned out. And just kind of like looked at my wife, said, "Hey, I've been thinking about hanging my own shingle for a while, and here we are." So it's been a great ride, great journey. Wouldn't trade it in for anything. And as you mentioned, Rock Cyber, we focus on cybersecurity and AI strategy assessments. We do business continuity. We do compliance readiness, compliance management. Um, Pretty much run the gamut, except for actually being hands-on keyboard.
Okay, so there's a considerable amount of time in the space coming from that kind of dot-com bubble scenario to
Oh yeah.
the place that we're in now, and the space has evolved. I'm sure your business has evolved. I wonder how your role has kind of changed and how you've adapted to that over the last kind of couple of decades.
Yeah. So I went from being uber technical
Mm.
to really finding myself interested in the business side of security. And it was more around out of frustration. Like, why doesn't marketing get it? Why doesn't sales get it? Why don't the execs get it? Right? We're going to get hacked. Right. And there was that very old school uh, techno geek, which is nothing wrong with my fellow techno geeks out there, mentality. Um, and, where security just became disconnected with the business, right? Not aligned with the business. It was always viewed as a cost center, more like an insurance policy. So my path, and I'm not saying that's everybody's path, was to get an MBA to help learn how to bridge that gap. And that's what propelled me into the leadership roles that I was in. My COVID project, along with my co-author, Matt Sharp, is right over my shoulder here. We wrote a book called the CISO Evolution. That's really a business book for cybersecurity leaders. So it's not your traditional cybersecurity book in that sense. And our premise is, hey, you don't need an MBA to be a good security leader. But, Matt and I both have MBAs. We kind of distilled that schooling and our experiences down into the book. That's, self-promotion. But that became a passion of mine, right? Is really being able to drive security through the lens of the business and business enablement and focusing on business outcomes.
Right. So walk me through some of the key revenue milestones and that the early days, obviously there's the yeah, the bootstrapping and you're really trying to pull things together and assemble your team. And as you grow, obviously so does the revenue. So kind of where did you start and what were some of the key milestones? Where are you at now in terms of revenue?
No, I don't want to disclose numbers, but you're right. Very early days, chief everything officer.
I
It was me,
like that
myself,
term.
and I, right? Um, and oftentimes, I still find myself as chief everything officer, but I've offloaded the books, right? I have a salesperson now. Um, and our bench is about 8 people strong now. Um, so and they're decently utilized. We've seen some interesting market fluctuations this year with interest rates being so high, and we tend to serve the mid enterprise market. So they're just deferring projects, right, to kind of hold on to that cash, see where interest rates lie. We're anticipating there being a lot of, well, especially as interest rates start to drop, as the Fed has very strongly hinted, some use it or lose it budget money at the end of the year that's going to come up. And it happens almost every year where it's like December 1st. Oh, crap. We forgot to do our pen test this year. And we have to for our various compliance things that we have to do. But we haven't done our annual risk assessment, or we haven't done this, or we haven't done that. Um, so, we're looking forward to that Q4.
Yeah, that's exciting. The prospect of all of this kind of trickle in business as a result of some natural consequences of the state of the market. So
Yeah.
when it comes to, the traditional sense of how, you kind of approach that whole marketing engine and how you acquire new customers, can you maybe walk us through what your customer experience map looks like from that perspective of like discovery to deal?
Yeah. So even today, RockCyber's been in business, since 2018. So a little over 6 years. And um, even today, most of our business, I would say 75-80% of our business is referral, word of mouth, right? And we do have some outbound motion, but we really focus on kind of relationship based selling, not a ton of outbound cold reach and stuff like that. Because having been in the CISO seat, um, I have kicked out more salespeople out of my office than I care to admit. I stopped answering my phone. Even now, that even worse that I have a CEO and founder title, um, I get bombarded with different salespeople. Right, this more around lead gen and potential partnerships, and hey, we want you to check out our tech and give us advice, which is really masked as go sell our wares, right?
Right, right.
That type of thing. So so I'm very, very conscious in, kind of that outbound sales motion, which is why we focus on building relationships first. The consequence of that is a longer sales cycle, but the other side of that is more solid, deeper engagements with the client.
So when you mentioned the outbound stuff, I get that a lot of this has been kind of intentionally designed. What would be some of the things that you would caution others against in terms of why you've made your decision to be kind of hands off from third party sort of involvement or support?
Yeah. Hey, in full disclosure, right? We're in the middle of an outbound email campaign right now, so it's not totally um out of our ballpark, but it is definitely not our primary source of leads, source of revenue.
Mhm.
Um, it's just, I'm almost calling it experimental right now. And I get it. All the numbers say email marketing still works. It's a numbers game. But having been a practitioner and on
Mhm.
the other side of the fence, which is, I think, a pretty unique value proposition we bring, is, I am uber sensitive to the the time responsibility, like the amount of time CISOs have and how thinly stretched they are.
Mm.
I am uber sensitive to the fact that I don't want my domain getting blacklisted by the anti-spam providers, right?
Right.
Um, and I just want to be respectful of everybody's time, right? Which is why, you know, over my 25-ish year career, I've built good relationships. I've been very fortunate to build good relationships and have a strong network. And when I started RockCyber and decided, all right, it's time to cut the cord, go off on my own, I was on my first engagement within 10 days. And it was only 10 days because I already had a trip planned and like that week in between.
Right.
So I literally could have started, from a Friday to a Monday on my first engagement because of that word of mouth, right? I kind of started prepping the battlefield, if you will, months earlier, saying, hey, I'm going to go off on my own, would appreciate referrals, keeping me in mind, that type of thing. And that worked wonders, right? It's, just being, I think, a good person and maintaining those relationships and having a lot of friends in the industry is, you know, there's an infinite return on investment on that, right?
Right. How do you balance that between, as you said, like fellow CISO members have very limited amount of time and they're very stretched thin, and they are still posed with the same challenge of like going out there and getting new clients and new customers, because without that kind of, inflow of new client work, you become stagnant and kind of risk losing the business. So what's your approach to kind of balancing that?
Yeah. So, and that's a very good question, right? Because we've definitely gone through ups and downs,
Hmm.
and which is why I brought on a salesperson to begin with,
Right.
about 2.5 years ago. And, um, but you're exactly right, right? Like in consulting, it's peaks and valleys, right? There's not a lot of steady cash flow, which is
Right.
why we're starting to pivot internally to more as a service stuff
Hmm.
to help smooth out that cash flow. Like you don't get that big lump sum up front, but I'd rather have, the smooth cash flow over time, supplementing those peaks and valleys. And so we're addressing it that way. And um, again, I think also because I spent the vast majority of career on the other side of the fence, right on the practitioner side of the fence, on the CISO side of the fence.
Hmm.
Um, I have better quality conversations. I'm able to get conversations because of my reputation and my experience, and I am not like the sales guy going in, right?
Hmm.
And I probably offer up, frankly, more advice than I should for free, right? As I'm talking to people,
Yeah.
but it's. I often say, especially in kind of like the market we operate in, kind of like that mid enterprise space, there's no competition because there's so much damn work to do. There's 100 there's 1,000 RockCybers out there, and the more we learn off of each other, the better, right? We're not stealing each other's customers, um, that type of thing, and we really need to form together. And then I've also formed partnerships with other RockCybers out there, right? Because we all have, when things are going well, we all have overflow, right? And I need to bring on external partners to help.
Yeah, do you think that's a part, like the reputation is a part of it, I think. But in terms of like having your customer experience be remarkable enough that they share it with other people. I think that's a especially when, like you said, the 70-80% you're relying on that referral. So
Yeah,
somebody somewhere has to be talking about you. What have you
yeah.
done to kind of elevate your service in a way that makes it remarkable to others?
Very bespoke, right? Like I started RockCyber being so burned by larger consulting companies, in my cybersecurity career, like the practitioner side of the career,
Yeah.
um, because they try to fit square pegs into round holes. I've worked for very large and very small organizations, and the methodology was always the same. So our smallest client has been a two-person government startup, and our largest has been a global 100 manufacturing organization. So we are able to scale our services accordingly.
Hmm.
And I think that is, pretty unique in the market. I think people claim to do so, but we've demonstrated that we could do so. Um, a lot of the larger companies, they're like, and I don't mean to bash on anyone, so I'm not gonna name names, but they're like body shops, right? We need to turn the customers quickly. So we have our templates, we have our methodology, whether and that makes sense for them. We're just gonna shove them into that methodology so we can use our existing templates, use our existing, uh, you know, I've received reports that where they didn't do a complete like search and replace on the company name of the report that they used previously, right? So like if you didn't do that, like, is any of this other data not changed? Right? Is this really my report or someone else's report?
That's scary.
Yeah, yeah, and not to say that I'm perfect. I definitely make plenty of typos in my stuff, even with Grammarly and all the things, right? But
Yeah.
I like to think I haven't screwed up that bad. And but I think our clients will tell you that our approach in that regard, understanding that there's no one size fits all, especially when it comes to the implementation of controls. Like we're potentially working with another small government startup that needs to attain CMMC. They're 5 people. Um, they're not. I mean, they need to attain CMMC level 2, just like Lockheed needs to attain CMMC level 2. They're not going to go about it the same way, right? There's not a prescriptive formula to get there, and we understand that.
So given how, and I'm struggling for words here, so kind of bear with me, but given how intangible it is in terms of the the relationships, you're having these open channels of communication with a whole bunch of different people. How do you kind of keep track of all of it, and how are you measuring whether or not your efforts are fruitful, successful, leading you down the right path? What do you use to kind of help keep you on track?
Yeah. From the relationship standpoint, honestly, I don't keep track of, or I shouldn't say that. I've started to just recently keep track of like MQLs, marketing qualified leads, and sales qualified leads. Um, but other than that, it's like, what's coming in the top of the funnel, what's spitting out from the bottom of the funnel, right? And what's that difference? When we're referred somewhere, our win rate is north of 80%, right? And when we go and, when somebody, um, when either, my sales guy identifies someone and we're kind of going in there relatively cold and has been able to get a meeting, um, if we get to the proposal phase, right, they're like, yeah, we're ready to go, send us over a proposal, whatever, we win those about 50% of the time. So that's kind of how I measure our success. From the relationship standpoint perspective, I value my friendships, I value my relationships, I value my network. Um, it's very personal to me, and I'm not going to treat that as a business. Like, hey, I talked to, Mike today, who I've known for 15 years, and I'm not putting him into our CRM, or kind of documenting that call, right? Like, I'm just, well,
Right. Yeah, that's a difficult one, especially with the longer term relationships. It's like at some point, this person doesn't need to be a part of an email newsletter nurture program. And
exactly. And I always warn like my kind of like my close-ish circle that
mhm,
like, hey, I'm starting an email campaign. Super apologies if you get wrapped up into it. Just let me know, and I'll go in and like manually surgically remove you. Um, but I can't go through a list that's probably a couple thousand long. So to pick
right.
out names. So
Yeah, I guess with as much time in the game as you've had, there's the list is going to get extensive. So I guess then this is a perfect segue into maybe a look into the future here. And I know that at the top of the show, we touched on your involvement in AI and some of those tools. And how do you see, like, I see a lot of, including like the work that we're doing in the way of, AI voice and AI communication tools. Where do you see all of that fitting into things? How do you see it evolving? What about it are you maybe happy about or upset about? Maybe if we could kind of get your perspective on some of these newer things that are coming down the pipeline.
yeah, I mean, full disclosure, um, AI has increased my productivity probably 10x, right? We use it for various things, whether it be marketing, helping streamline our risk assessment process, um, report writing, stuff like that. But there's always human in the loop, and not just like a checkbox human in the loop. Like I'll review, or our consultant will review every report going out, um, because it's not like we're not using AI to say here's the data, spit out the report, right? We're saying here's the data, help me analyze it, and then we analyze it, um, and then help build the report that way.
Hmm.
So Um, yeah, so we use it internally. I mean, it's a huge productivity tool. Um, from a cybersecurity standpoint, I heard a quote a couple weeks ago, Black Hat, where cybersecurity is a data problem. We've known that forever. And AI is a data problem solver, right? And I mostly agree with that statement. But, with cybersecurity, we also have the squishy things like people and processes that we need to consider, where AI doesn't really do a good job. It will streamline processes, but if you have bad processes, it'll streamline and automate your bad processes, right?
Yeah.
making things go worse faster. So there's still the human component there. What we're getting a lot of interest in is around AI governance. So, I'll get a phone call, past client, where they're saying, "Hey, Rock, the business is running with AI. We need to get our arms wrapped around it. Can you help us form a governance program around it?" Yes, absolutely, we can. What are we governing? And they kind of pause, and they're like, "AI, ... you idiot," right? Which doesn't come out of their mouths, but that's like the tone, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, 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 no. Have you defined the AI strategy within the organization? Have you defined the business use case opportunities? Have you quantified what those use case opportunities mean to the business, right? Increase revenue, decrease costs, increase efficiency, productivity, safety, whatever that case may be. Have you defined the metrics around identifying if those initiatives are successful? Like 80 to 85% of AI initiatives fail, according to Gartner and Harvard Business Review. And, because there's not kind of like that business alignment and cross-functional collaboration within those projects. So then we're finding that now we're getting involved in the AI strategy conversation and helping them formulate, the organization-wide AI strategy, which is also a little comical in the sense of like, great, like you absolutely need that. And then I ask the client, great, what's your number one fear of using AI? And it's almost always data. The wrong data goes in there, or data gets leaked out of there, or stuff like that. So I'm like, great, what's your data governance program look like? And they look at me and they're like, yeah, like the last 2 or 3 CISOs have told us we should do something about it, and we continue to kick it down the road. I'm like, well, it's kind of time to pay the piper, right? Like classic scenario. And this is more of an identity problem than it is necessarily a data governance problem, but I've got friends who have turned on Copilot and within Microsoft 365.
Mm-hmm.
And the old days, which was just like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I pretty much knew the access I needed to know, I needed to have to do my job, right? I knew which documents I had access to, which tools I had access to, whatever. What I really didn't know was any scope creep that happened on the backside through whether or not I transferred positions, right? Or I no longer needed access to this set of documentation or these documents on our shared drive or whatever, right? But they're still there. So now people are turning on Copilot. It's like, oh, look, the IT help desk analyst has access to financial projections, right? And so it's gone from like, no, I have a key and I know which, and I think I know which doors that key will unlock, to now having big neon signs above those doors saying this key will work here, right?
Yeah.
And that key may be finance, CEO salary, right? Like stuff like that. So identity and access management becomes a big problem there too, along with data governance, right? Because it's all tied together.
So, Rock, as we kind of come to an end of our time together here, I wonder if you can look forward at some of the future goals and things that you are kind of working on building for RockCyber.
Yeah, we're really leaning in hard in AI. We've built a governance framework and a set of controls that are aligned to the NIST AI risk management framework, the EU AI Act, um, ISO 42001, and I live in Colorado. So the Colorado Senate Bill 24-205, which is the first in the nation state level AI bill to be approved, and that goes into effect February of 26. And so we kind of approached that from, hey, we're going to generate our set of controls, our control framework, if you will, and doing the right thing, right? Not checking boxes, but doing, the right thing, what needs to be done, what should be done, best practice in a scalable fashion. And then we went back and mapped those controls to those frameworks. Because the reality is a CISO's reported to their board alignment against something well known, like the NIST AI risk management framework, and not rock off the streets framework, right?
Right.
So they need to have that mapping in those dashboards to be able to report to their leadership and the board. But in the meantime, they know that they're doing the right thing, and that happens to lead to compliance to those other frameworks versus checking the boxes for those frameworks that still haven't got.
Yeah, and I guess the bigger the team, the bigger the problem, because you just have more, I guess we'll call them access points to point of failure
Exactly.
in the system. So yeah, that's exciting and very necessary work. Brock, as kind of a closing thought here, I wonder if maybe if you could, if there was somebody kind of out there who's doing this work, who's trying to create something and facing some challenges, what type of advice would you offer somebody like that?
I mean, I have been all consumed with the human impact on AI of AI for probably the last 6 months, and and so naturally that kind of fell into the governance side.
Mm,
So whatever it is you're doing, if you're on the technical side of AI, trying to provide inline protections for the OAuth top 10 LLM, or you're trying to do more of the strategy and governance work, just start reading. Pick up any book, any resource you can. IAPP, the International Association of Privacy Professionals, has a ton of free resources. Um, I recommend a book called Not By a Book, but By a Sticker. I forget the author's name offhand, but it goes into just how much we trust AI, yet how easily it is for it to be tricked.
mm.
And and it's a real eye-opening, a real eye-opener around how easy it is to create adversarial examples. And that doesn't necessarily mean hacking the AI, but getting the AI to do things it was not meant to do, right? Like, give me the CEO's salary, and I'm a IT help desk person, right? Type of
Right.
thing. So, yeah, just the best way to learn a new language is to like go live in the country, right? To speak it every day natively. I think it's the same thing with really any new technology you pick up, especially for AI, because it's such transformational. I think this is the biggest technology transformational moment of our lifetime since the advent of the internet. Like, I think it puts, it makes cloud look like a baby, IoT look like a baby in comparison, right? This is a fundamental shift of how we live our lives.
Yeah, very exciting prospect, but also a little
Yeah,
terrifying at the same time.
exactly.
Listen, Rock, this has been great. You've been very generous with your time and wisdom, and on behalf of anybody watching and listening, I just have to say I'm very grateful for what you've shared with us today. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to pick your brain further or perhaps work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, they can email info@rockcyber.com or just hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm the only Rock Lambros on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. We'll make sure to link to that stuff in the show notes for anybody that's watching and listening. If they do want to get in touch with you, they can do it that way. And on that note, if you want to get in touch with me and my team for any of your marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, and I will see you in the next.